It's time for the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. The podcast you look forward to for all of your news and reviews of the best comic books hitting stands. Whether it's DC,
Batman, Wonder Woman,
Marvel,
Spider-Man,
Image,
Spawn, Saga,
Boom,
Once and Future, Power Rangers,
or whatever book or publisher you follow,
we cover them all here.
this is the place for you.
That's right, it's for everyone.
This is the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast.
Let's get it.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. I am your host, Theo. Got something a little different this time around for this episode. I'm going to be sitting with comic book creator and publisher Fabrice Sapolsky. So he is well known for being the co-creator of Spider-Man Noir, the black and white version of The Amazing Spider-Man. And he and I sat down to talk a little bit about his KickStarter campaign that's going on right now, that is called We Will Survive. And so the title of the campaign is different from the previous ones that he and his company over at FairSquare Graphics have been doing in the past, because 2025 was a little bit of a turbulent year for not just FairSquare Graphics, but also many independent comic book publishers with the bankruptcy of Diamond Distributors. And so when the campaign came up and I read what it was about, it made me want to reach out to him, and I did, to come on to the show to talk about the impact that the failure of Diamond Distributors has had on the comic book industry, especially when it comes to smaller comic book publishers such as FairSquare Graphics. You know, we hear about everything that has gone on with this bankruptcy and the liquidation, and you know, the publishers such as DC and Image and Marvel, they've been okay. They were actually away from Diamond before all of this come about. And some of the other not as small but not as large publishers also were making their way away from Diamond. But the domino effect of Diamond's failure in the industry, one, it was a long time coming. Those who have followed me and have known me long before this podcast came into being, you know, knew my thoughts on Diamond and their antiquated system of comic book distribution, and how that monopoly made matters worse. And COVID probably, if anything, sped things up. There were several times where there were rumors of either Marvel or DC leaving Diamond and looking elsewhere for comic book distribution, and it never happened. But with the pandemic back in 2020, it really led to the first domino falling, and it just never stopped until the complete failure of Diamond and its bankruptcy. But, you know, I saw it happening sooner rather than later. Others who have followed the business of the comic book industry have foretold the failure of Diamond. Just so many things that were antiquated in the entire business model that they ran, from the software to the setup, and you just knew that things weren't gonna go well. And the pandemic, for all of the bad things that came out of the pandemic, Diamond's failure and its downfall happened because of the pandemic as well. And it's unfortunate that downfall affected so many small independent comic book publishers who don't have the resources and the wherewithal to, go out and just immediately immediately jump into business with another distributor. And when you look at it, and you'll hear more about it in my conversation with Fabrice, it's not simply getting a distributor to handle comic books to the comic book shops around the country and around the world, but there's also distribution to libraries. There's also distribution to bookstores such as Barnes and Noble. So it's a lot of things that go into play when it comes to eh, getting partnership with comic book distribution. And for smaller comic book companies, it's not as simple. I know, do you remember I was speaking about the issues with Massive and how they had to put things on hold with the release of Ally Popeye from Marcus Williams because of everything with Diamond. And even a larger company such as Dynamite Entertainment, which again isn't the size of a DC, Marvel, or Image, but they're not a small company either. But even they were impacted, and they had books that had to be delayed because of everything that occurred with Diamond Distributors. So even no one was untouched by what had happened. If they were still in business in some form with Diamond. And from the likes of FairSquare Graphics to Dynamite to Massive, the industry was shook by the downfall of Diamond. And I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm happy they're gone. I mean, I have never been a fan of Diamond, and again, I've never been a fan of their business model. But I am saddened by the effects that it has had on the comic book industry. And the latest thing that happened, and I believe the hearing has occurred already, and we talked a little bit about it, was Diamond had all of this inventory, which wasn't theirs, but they wanted the court to give them permission to sell that inventory and to keep the money so that they can pay off their debts. And that left a whole bunch of publishers like FairSquare Graphics really in the bind, because they were depending on that inventory being sold and the proceeds from that sale coming to them. And now we get this story of Diamond wanting to sell that inventory and to keep the proceeds for itself to pay off its debts. But we're going to talk a little bit about that in my conversation with Fabrice Sapolsky. And that's all we're going to do for this episode, is talk a little bit about that, because it really is a serious situation, especially for these smaller publishers, some who are still in dire straits with trying to get distribution done. And you'll hear a little bit about that, and we'll talk a little bit about the campaign that's going on Kickstarter as well. I have links to the Kickstarter in the show notes. Please, if you're not supporting We Will Survive on Kickstarter, please do so. It really will help a company such as FairSquare Graphics stay on its feet. And you'll hear a little bit about why the campaign was put forward. There's some new stuff in there, but it's a lot of their current stuff as well. And as someone who has backed FairSquare all the way back to when it was still known as FairSquare Comics, I am a big fan of the work that they put out. So there'll be links to the campaign in there, as well as to their new comic book distributor. They were able to get a distributor for the direct market. So they have someone that will help with getting their books out to the comic book industry and the local comic book shops. But that's going to be it. And I will go ahead and lead you all right into that. Here is my conversation with Fabrice Sapolsky, talking a little bit about everything that has gone on with the downfall of Diamond and its effect on everything that's been going on at FairSquare Graphics, and then we'll talk a little bit about the campaign that's going on Kickstarter. And so here's my conversation with Fabrice. I will see you all on the other side. Hey folks, it's Theo, and I am sitting here with comic book legend Fabrice Sapolsky. Welcome to the show, Fabrice. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm good. I'm not a legend. I'm just a blue collar of this industry.
Well, I could spend a long time talking to you about your career in the industry, but I really wanted, one of the reasons why I asked you on the show is I really wanted to talk to you as a publisher and the publisher with what's going on in the industry, especially since the bankruptcy of Diamond Distributors and the effect that it has on publishers such as you. So right now, you have a campaign that's going on Kickstarter, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But I really wanted to again, from the business aspect, explain to fans and readers out there just how much of an impact that this recent bankruptcy and liquidation of Diamond Distributors has had on you as a publisher.
Well, first, there's something that is very cryptic for a lot of people, and that's what does a distributor do? A distributor is the middle body between the publishers and the retailers, and to a certain extent, the readers. The distributor receives inventory on a consignment basis. That means that the books and every book that is sent to a distributor remains the sole property, in theory, of the publisher. Is sitting in their warehouses, and they are then shipped to the retailers where they've been ordered, and said retailers can offer them to their customers. So it's a body that helps. It's mainly a logistical entity that helps both parties connect with each other. So a distributor is, by a sense, and especially considering the size of our country, the United States, extremely important, because of course neither me or my team or my creators, we can't go to every store and say, hey, would you carry our books? We can do it to a certain extent, but we need a helping hand. And that helping hand is that distributor, which charges a hefty price for that. And it's also something that a lot of people don't know. When a book is sold for, I don't know, $30, for example, like some of our graphic novels, 62% in the case of Diamond, but in the case of other distributor, it can go up to 75 or 80% of the cover price goes through the distributor, and that percentage, that money, is shared between the distributor and the retailer. That's how much the distributor takes from the price of a book. So as a publisher, of course, we are impacted greatly when a distributor goes down, just like Diamond. And Diamond has been part of the fabric of our industry for 40 years. It's the unthinkable that happened in January. Like, people had fears at the beginning of COVID. Diamond ran out of money. They ran out of cash because the system kind of like was in panic mode, and DC left them, which they were still in disbelief, I think, at that time. And so DC left in 2019, which was like a threat that they had formulated many times before, but at one point they had enough and they decided to leave. And Diamond was in denial. They were like, well, okay, we still have the others, we can carry on. Then a year later, Marvel leaves, Dark Horse leaves, IDW leaves. Then in 2023, the nail in the coffin, Image leaves. And instead of looking at their model, trying to reinvent it, restructure, put all of us publishers in the loop, they decided to swipe everything under the rug and make it like everything's okay. This is where the criminal aspect of things starts, because when they decided to go bankrupt, they ran out of option. You don't trigger the bankruptcy system until you're running out of options. Now, I've had bankruptcies before in some of my companies in the earliest part of my career. I'm not afraid of it. When it's done correctly, it is not a problem. It is a solution. It's a chance, because you put yourself under the protection of the Department of Justice. Because if you didn't do anything wrong, that means that your company can operate as usual by freezing your debt, and allows you to find a new system to keep going despite your debt. And then you present a plan to the court that will help you formulate that plan. And when the plan is accepted, then you pay little by little whatever you owe to the people you owe. That's not what Diamond did. Diamond went bankrupt, took everyone by surprise, including their employees. We were never warned. We had no sign. I mean, I personally had like a red flag last year, but it was just a red flag. Like I couldn't tell the amount of debt that they had accumulated. No one could. And they took everyone by surprise, their employees, everybody. And then all of a sudden, we realized that all the money that was owed to them prior to January 14th was gone. We would never have it. Why we would never have it? Because there's something called secured debt and unsecured debt. The secured debt are usually the state and the banks. These are the bodies that secure their debt via insurances and special contracts. They secure their debt. Usually, like people like us, vendors, we don't secure our debt because the books are ours. So the logic would have been like, okay, Diamond goes bankrupt, we can take our books back, or we take our inventory back. The Pokemon company actually did that. They triggered that immediately after bankruptcy. They took all the inventory of their cards, and there was no problem. Now, there was a piece of paperwork called UCC1 that everybody should have filed in order to protect our inventory from bankruptcy and from Diamond running out of options and being quote unquote forced to consider selling books that they did not own, but that were sitting on their premises. We were never informed that such a thing existed. I would think that when a company goes through trouble, and my company is going through trouble right now, you should be transparent about it and informed every person or company you're working with about what's the ins and outs of stuff. That is not what has been done. We never received an email, never received a phone call, never received information. Nothing was officially sent to us. I know that there's a few number of companies that have received information, but we're too small. They didn't even care about us. So we never received anything. So how could we know about our rights if our rights are not presented to us? Which leads us to the situation that unfolded after a few months. We were told by Diamond, the employees that remained at Diamond, that business should operate as usual. We had a book on the way. We couldn't stop it. When Diamond declared bankruptcy, there was a truck that was going from our printer in Canada to Diamond in Tennessee. And we couldn't stop it. That was a manga called Red Flower, which we're extremely passionate about. And that is a fantastic West African influenced manga. Uh, and After May 14th, when the company was officially sold to a group called Ad Populum, we were told that everything would be different and that we would switch from an old diamond to a new diamond, except the old diamond was still running the operations for the old diamond. It means for the debt, for the inventory, for everything. And the new diamond was supposed to restart from that point on. Never happened. Most of the employees have been sacked on May 16th, and Diamond was reduced to a skeleton crew that was just there to make sure that everything was going okay until they themselves turned the lights off. So they were clearly on their way out from that moment. But again, when you've been sold that narrative that Diamond is going to be bought out, there's going to be a new owner, everything's going to be okay, we operate as usual. And even though in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm not going to give them any new books. They tried. They asked me, do you want to send your new books? I said, no, until you figure things out, you're going to have what you have. We're already in danger of not being paid for Red Flower and for the other titles. And of course, they haven't properly paid us. There were some weeks where we didn't receive any payments. Why? They were not able to give us an answer. We tried, no answer, crickets. After May 16th, it became really ugly. As in, I started being going public about it, talking about the situation, talking about what's going on. The fact that I couldn't get anyone on the phone. I ended up getting a guy named Robert Gar on the phone, who was supposed to be a consultant. Now we know that he was in charge of the estate that was dealing with Old Diamond, which is funny. Like Heidi McDonald of The Beat calls that entity Zombie Diamond because they were not alive but not dead. So Zombie Diamond. I think it's very comic booky to call it that way. From that moment, it was clear that there was nothing to get. So we started getting our books back. There was a process through Diamond called no cost reorder, where you could fill a form and then the warehouse would send you back how many copies of your own inventory, no extra charge that you need, because these are your books. So why would they put a charge? You would just pay for shipping and then you would get our books back. So I started placing an order, but of course it was impossible for me to place an order for more than 100 books at a time, because it's very expensive. If you go through UPS, it goes really fast. So I started placing like 100, 200, 300, and then they stopped sending the books. And someone at their warehouse told me, no, starting now, and at this point we were early June 2nd, nothing comes in or goes out. The warehouse is locked down. I try to get answers. I'm told, like, for legal reasons, which is very vague. And then the rumors start spreading in the community that that's because they're preparing their move, which is to look at what they have in the warehouse and sell everything that they have on the premises, which is stealing. And it's a legal way of stealing because in the law, when a company is going bankrupt and has exhausted all their options to try to pay their debt, whatever's left on their premises, even if they don't own it, they can sell it, unless you file a UCC1, the form that we never heard about and they knew about beforehand. Now, there's clearly a communication issue, and I think that was deliberate on Diamond's part. And it leaves us with no options. So what happened is late June, two groups of publishers started looking at it from a collective standpoint. And I tried to join one of the two groups, the one that was led by Dynamite Comics, because I know these people and I can call them friends. And they were like, Fabrice, you need to be with us. You can't be left outside of the thing, because even if the action in court goes well and those publisher manage to have Diamond not sell the inventory, ours will still be sold. Why? Because I didn't have the $6,000 to pay for a lawyer to halt that situation. And as a matter of fact, we'll know very, very soon the outcome of this. But the court was very clear. If you're not part of one of those two groups, there's no way you can appeal. There's no way you can do anything. Your inventory is gone. So I had a conversation with my partner, Crystal, and said, what are we going to do? Like, we have no money. We have no books. How can we have a future? Publisher without books or without money, this becomes very complicated. And plus, we piled up debt ourselves, because all these books that we printed, we still have to pay for them. There are some creators that need money. We still need to pay for them. To pay them for the books. So we need to pay our debts ourselves. That was generated by a lack of cash flow, because in 6 months we have barely seen anything except the money we made from conventions. So, and conventions, you make a little profit, but once everything is deducted, it's not enough to capitalize and have more money and reimburse the past, as well as funding the future. It's not enough. And we did a few Kickstarters. The Kickstarters have been soft, and there's something that people don't realize. Even if we succeed at Kickstarter, it doesn't mean that our budget is covered. Like, we did Noir is the New Black, and I'm very candid about this. We did Noir is the New Black season 2, episode 1 in June, July, and the book is going to actually be there tonight at our HQ. So I'm going to start sending them very quickly to people who backed it. Even Noir is the New Black, when we make 11,700 officially, there's about $600 in drop backers because their card couldn't be charged. And then there's 10% of fees from Kickstarter. At the end of the day, we get only 9,000. 9,000 is not the budget of the book. The budget of the book is 15,000. So we still have to find $6,000 before we even start selling our book. And this is not a random or isolated case. Most of the Kickstarters right now are like that. Some publishers and creators are luckier. They're better at this, or they have a product that is getting more seen and more appreciated than ours. But this is our reality. This is not a game of equals. This is what you get. You have to accept it, deal with it, and try to navigate the world with what you're presented with. And it's like a perfect storm in 2025. You lose your distributor, your Kickstarters are kind of like weak, and you have a cash flow issue. So it's all that led us to that radical solution, which is we're gonna do another Kickstarter, but not to sell a project in particular, but to help us survive. Because FairSquare Graphics, and I say this all the time, is the only family, immigrant, and minority-owned publisher of graphic novels. And this is not a gimmick. This is who we are and the people we work with. Every voice that we publish cannot be silenced. And I think people are responding really well to what we do. Some other distributors that we contacted, they're like, oh, well, your books are pretty, but you don't have much potential. I beg your pardon. We sold over 7,000 copies of Noir is the New Black, the graphic novel, not the new issue, the graphic novel. We sold over 3,000 copies of A Boy Named Rose. We sold over 2,000 copies of Lady Bird. 1,700 copies of a Fox in My Brain. That might be nothing to you. That's still a lot for a publisher that is just a one-person operation. And I don't know, in 2023, the company made $250,000 in revenue. We fell to 140 something in 24, and it's probably going to be a little less than that in 25. But that doesn't mean that we don't have any potential. That just means that there's a hiccup. That hiccup came from our distributor failing us and trying to drag us in the mud with them, which I refuse. And I'm touring Crystal sometimes, but mostly I'm touring. And we're doubling, tripling our efforts to make sure that we fight. We're not going to go down without a fight. We're not going to go down, period. It works or it works. There's no plan B. That's the immigrant mentality in me. And yeah, look, this is what it is. So now let's hope it can work.
Well, I have been a follower of FairSquare. I was one of the first backers on Noir is the New Black. So I am a proud backer of that. And I have backed several projects on Kickstarter since then. And every time Fabrice has come to New Orleans for Fan Expo, I'm always ended up spending money there. The last time I ended up buying a copy of Holmes and Watson, which FairSquare was able to pick up as a publisher. So I am a proud sponsor of this indie publisher. But let's talk a little bit about the campaign that is going on right now. You mentioned that season 2, episode 1 of Noir is the New Black was successful. I actually had Joe Ilyich on the podcast about a month or so ago, and he and I talked about his story with the Winterfields. And I am a huge fan of his. He's one of those individuals you could sit down with multiple times and each time get a different conversation and learn a ton of stuff. But let's talk a little bit about We Will Survive, and that is the campaign that is currently going on Kickstarter. Yep. And as you mentioned, this isn't about a new project. This is. I
mean, there are new projects in it. Like there are books that have been ready for months and that we can't print. So they will be printed if we go through.
Right. So it's based on. But it's not pushing it's not season 2 episode 1.
Yes.
Yeah. So and again, day one backer here, and there's a comment on Kickstarter for me to say that.
First day backer. I saw that.
That's right, first day backer. But what this gives backers the opportunity to do is to see some new stuff. 2, pick up on stuff that they may have missed out on. So I missed out on issue 1 of Black Girl Magic. So now you have an opportunity to get your hands on a copy if you've done that. And 3, it's an opportunity to help FairSquare, to keep things rolling until this hiccup is through. And talk a little bit about what fans and backers can expect with We Will Survive.
Well, as you said, FairSquare Graphics, you have to say graphics.
Yes. And believe me, Joe corrected me a few times because, again, when I first started backing you guys, it was still FairSquare Comics.
Yes. And there's a reason for that. Like, we realized when we were FairSquare Comics, which we were very proud comics, we come from comics. This is comics. And it's still comics, even though we're graphics. But some retailers would not order our books because there's comics in it and they're very anti-comics. And for some reason that's very weird in their mind, they don't see that graphic novels and comics are one and the same. A graphic novel is just a thicker comic, but it's still a comic. So anyhow, there's the point in why graphics is very important next to FairSquare. But we published over 45 titles in the past 6 years, and we understand that with the frequency we're launching our Kickstarters, that's a lot for a lot, and you can't be with us all the time. So sometimes you're going to pick your poison. You're going to pick the series that you're gravitating towards. But that doesn't mean that the rest of what we publish is not something you might enjoy. And this campaign, because it's 100% digital, gives an opportunity for you to access books that you probably never would have considered if you was not in a package. This is actually something that we started discovering a few months ago. Like when we did the campaign for Mutiny Black Girl Magic #2, it was in the spring, early in the spring. We started offering digital packages with multiple titles that we were curating for the audiences, and they were very successful. We saw people like, oh, I have this book, but I don't have these 3 other ones, so I'm going to take this package, and then I'm going to see, and if I like it, I'll buy the hard copy. And if I don't like it enough, that's cool. I have read it. And we then did it for The Big Lie. We did it for Shakespeare's Vampires, and then for Noir is the New Black Season 2, Episode 1. And every time we're very surprised by the amount of people picking these packs. So it was kind of a natural thing to say, all right, we have almost no books left. Let's offer everything. Let's offer all the titles, and people can pick and choose whatever they like afterwards. We still have some physical options. First, because we still have a couple of books that we have here in print, but also because we wanted to do a little merch, including that very cool T-shirt where it says "Indie comics are amazing," that I had a blast designing. And there's an enamel pin, and there's a T-shirt with that logo. And we even have a mini bus that we're going to produce, thanks to Glenforce Studios, our partners on this. It will be a rendition in 3D of the original cover for Noir is the New Black. So it's something that right now we're going to produce a very small amount of busts, but if it proves successful, then we're going to be able to offer more. And it's exciting because Noir is the New Black has been our #1 seller, and we never produced any merch except like a T-shirt that mostly people ignored. Like, for some reason, you offer T-shirts, and like people are like, "Oh, you're doing T-shirts?" Yeah, we've always done T-shirts. Most of our books have a T-shirt associated to it, but people are not going to ePublic or Redbubble or whatever Printful where we have our catalogs that are there. They're waiting for us to show it on the Kickstarters. So that's what we did. So we have a mix of like about 95% digital and 5% physical products.
Okay, so just for the record, I signed up for the $50 tier, which is the 2 hearts of support. It starts at $25, and you can actually give what you want. So you could start, just to say, "Oh, I don't want, any books, but here, let me help you guys out." So you can do that, but I'm gonna urge you guys to go out there and get some of these graphic novels in digital form. Kickstarter is probably the reason why I am, more of a digital reader, simply because, it's the easier thing to do when you're supporting indie publishers out there. So picking the tier that I picked was, it just wasn't any question, especially considering, like I mentioned earlier, I was missing out on the first issue of Black Girl Magic from Krista. So that allowed me to get that, even though I may have the other issues. Although I am going to complain if we never get another Mutiny issue ever again.
Yes, you're going to have a next issue. I can even tell you that it's going to be not the next Kickstarter. The next Kickstarter is actually going to be Noir is the New Black Season 2, Episode 2. That will be we're going to launch late September. But then in October, we're going to have Mutiny Black Girl Magic issue 3. And we have a bunch of surprises and stories.
Great.
And then we had to delay because initially there was supposed to be one of my creator-owned that was going to run this summer. It's No Future. We did issue 1 last year, and issue 2 has been ready for a long time. But there was never a moment where we could launch the Kickstarter. So that also is going to happen this year. So No Future is going to be back. The artist is on issue 3 right now. Issue 2 has been completed for some time, and it's just like finding the time to put together the Kickstarter. Like actually the campaign page is already gone. It's already done. Sorry. We have 3 covers, one from Ed Messias, who's the artist, the main artist, one from me, and one from Drew Moss, artist on Thundercats.
So let me also say, and this is for my Noir the New Black, the first volume fellow backers out there. If you don't know this, I found this out on the DL. There is an extended version that has additional stories that, I ended up picking up when I backed season 2. So for what really got me to get it was hearing about that was the first instance of Joe Ilyich Winterfield's. He did a backup story in the extended edition. So
it's actually the first story of the book.
Yeah, so if you wanna catch up and get some additional Noir the New Black, not only do you back season 2, episode 1, but go out there and get the extended version as well. There's some extra stories in there as well.
Yes, there's also a story from Victor Dandridge, and there are more illustrations from Jason Reeves and Rashad Doucet, and we have a few things on top of, we bumped it to 164 pages from the original 148. So
yes, I am waiting to get mine so I can check out those new stories. And
well, the good thing about digital for this campaign is that once the campaign is done, since all the books are already here, you're going to get your reward like 3 days later or 2 days later. So
once Kickstarter does whatever Kickstarter does.
Yes.
So what's the last thing you want fans to know about what's next for FairSquare and
Graphics?
FairSquare Graphics and what they can expect. You've already mentioned the Kickstarters. What cons do you all have on the schedule for the rest of the year? Where can fans see you guys if they wanted to get some physical stuff?
So first, let me tell you something that is very important. At press time, so as we're talking right now, our distribution options are limited. For the direct market, which is the comic book shops, the hobby stores, we're going through a company called Filbo Distribution, which is a new actor on the scene. They're actually starting their first month of distribution in October, and fans can ask their retailers to order through Filbo. Filbo has 60 different independent publishers, and as they say, we were the back of the catalog at Diamond. Now we're the front of the catalog. We are the catalog at Filbo. And my friend Philip Russert put together this company, and I decided to trust him because he's also a publisher and he's also a creator, number one. So he's a peer. He's not a suit. He's not a person who is a bank. He's not a person who is not interested in everyone's health, financial and commercial. And second, he takes the minimum to make sure that everyone can be distributed fairly. And I mean, I call my company FairSquare Graphics, fair and square. So when I meet someone who thinks alike, of course, I'm going to join forces with them. I designed their first catalog. I did their Fail Views logo, and I tried to help as much as I can. They deserve a shot. I hope retailers who are going to see this understand that allowing Felbo in their stores means you can let your readers, your clients discover things that they probably would never have discovered if it was not for him. So everyone can look at felbodistribution.com. The catalog is public. It's not like previews where you had to have a subscription. You had to go to the store to grab the physical copies. You go to Felbo Distribution's website, you can see all the books from all the publishers. And as for us, the first month of October, we have 4 books, including one very important book for us called The Torchbearer from Greg Ellisay, Domenico Carbon, and myself, which is a spin-off from my Intertwined series that stars a Haitian character. And you have a Haitian hero like you've never had before. Like, go cave, Brother Voodoo. The Torchbearer is the real thing. And we also have The Big Lie, which is my personal interpretation on the character of Tintin, which I'm trying to wrap up right now, but I'm super late because I've been dealing with every other aspect of the company and the Kickstarters and the survival. So I'm just late. And also the story was supposed to be 48 pages and now it's 100. So it grew beyond what I originally, because I'm not reasonable as a creator and I always go above and beyond, and I want things to be really thick, fluffy.
That's a graphic novel for you.
What?
That's a graphic novel for you. It's thick.
Exactly. That's a graphic novel. And we have Shakespeare's Vampires, which is our first light novel that we kickstarted in the spring. And that is a book that I created with Colleen Douglas, who's an Afro-Caribbean British writer. She's amazing. And Lisa, who's a Brazilian-Japanese artist. So there's all that. And then there's November, where we have other titles, including the restart of Lady Bird, which has been sold out for a long time and now is going to fly again as a monthly series through the direct market. Now, on the book market and the libraries, we still don't have a distributor. So every store that wants to carry our books, they can go to us directly. That's going to be the norm from now on until we get a deal with a distributor. I'm not rushing. We interviewed a lot of distributors. None of them had a contract that was worthy of signing. Some others were not interested in us because we're too small. But we're not going to rush it. At one point, the priority is to rebuild our cash flow, rebuild our inventory that was lost, and try to overcome the hump. That's basically that. So that's what people can expect from us is more. But we're still going to release new books. Like there's this book called Happy Endings from a hugely successful author. Her name is Lucy Brayon. Lucy did a book a few years back called Thieves that was extremely popular, and we picked up our follow-up to Thieves, and it's a book called Happy Endings, and it's a book that is an anthology with 3 stories, queer stories, romantic stories, science fiction, supernatural, all mixed up. And we have of course Mutiny Black Girl Magic. I was mentioning it. Noir is the New Black, that is going to go until the end of this year. We might even continue after that. No Future, my original series. And what else that we have and I haven't mentioned? I don't know. There's a couple of other projects. Oh yeah, we're reprinting Breath of the Giant, which is our fantasy middle grade book that has been sold out for about 2 years. We're finally getting back our copies. And on October 5, right before New York Comic Con, we have a book that is very personal to me. It is a book of Jewish diversity, 12 stories from creators that are from every walk of life, Black, Asian, European, like everything, everyone The only thing is that they represent a version of a Jewish identity that no one ever seen in the United States, at least not in that form. And that is a project that we've been carrying for about 2.5 years with a nonprofit called Bechol Lashon, who is dedicated to promoting diversity in Judaism. So that book is also extremely important. It is part. You can actually read it as part of the higher tiers of We Will Survive, but it will be in print. It is currently at the printer. It will be in print right in time for New York Comic Con.
And so I will have links to FairSquare Graphics as well as to the new distributor in the show notes. Where can fans find out what else is going on with you and with Crystal? I follow Crystal on Facebook, so I'm always seeing her post. But where can
follow her? If you have to follow Crystal, Instagram or TikTok are her weapons of choices. Like she like mirrors on Facebook, but she doesn't really like Facebook. It's like for old people like me.
I don't know how to take
that. I like Facebook for one reason, is that I can write very long posts, which I can't write anywhere else. Like Instagram, you're limited. TikTok, of course, is not built for that. And every other platform is limited. Even LinkedIn is limited. But Facebook lets you write a whole chapter. I love this. So that's why Facebook. And the longer it is, apparently people like it. And let me tell you, I've been doing a lot of conventions. Like I'm going to Toronto this weekend. This is the 23rd convention of the year for me. And every Monday or Tuesday after the con, I publish a review of the con that I just experienced. And I can ruffle some feathers because not every con is born equal.
Is this Fan Expo Canada?
Fan Expo Canada, yes, that is in Toronto. Then after that, there's a hiatus for about a month and a half. It's going to be family time for me. Then back early October, October 5 is a Sunday. I have a con in Long Island, New York, next to where I live. That is organized by a company called Hot Flips. Then New York Comic Con. Then after that, I could tell you, I don't know all of the conventions from the top of my head, but I can tell you that I'm going to be in Minneapolis in November 7th to 9th. I'm going to be in Grand Rapids, and I may be in Columbus, Ohio also by the end of the year. So there's a lot. And for 26, I already have 32 shows on my schedule.
Ooh, interesting. Hopefully one of them is New Orleans.
I'm actually considering coming back to New Orleans, even though, I mean, the last time I was in New Orleans, I was sick.
So I remember. Really, that's right.
I had the flu.
So just FYI, New Orleans now has 2 shows. So there's Fan Expo in January.
And there's GalaxyCon after.
And then GalaxyCon is in July.
In July.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really have a relationship with GalaxyCon. That's one of the things that I need to build for next year. I'm pretty close with the people of Fan Expo. They've been good to us.
I love those guys.
And I like the people from Reed Pop. We're also very close to us. To them, sorry, we're very close to them. But GalaxyCon, I don't know them. I did one of the cons, but I was not officially there. I was subleasing space. But I hope I can build a relationship with all the promoters, honestly, because conventions are our playground. This is where we see real people buying real books. This is where we can have interactions. I was in Chicago this past weekend, and I can't tell you that a lot of people came to the table. They saw the campaigns. They saw me talking publicly about what happens with Diamond. And I was, again, one of the most vocal people denouncing the situation early on from May, June, and later. And they were like, we understand what you're doing. We support you. We're happy you're here. And we don't want you to die. And this warms my heart. You know, more days than you can count, I'm facing my computer. I'm facing like the walls of my office, and I'm like, why am I doing all this? And when I have readers that are actually coming to buy the books, or coming back campaign after campaign, this is humbling. You know that you're doing it. You're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it because there are people out there who appreciate the added value that you bring. And I hope they understand. Crystal and I are extremely grateful that we're meeting real people that are, behind us.
So again, the campaign is We Will Survive. I will have links to that campaign in the show notes and everything else. Please back it. We have about another week or two left in the campaign as of
August 31st.
August 31st. So yeah, so that's next
around the
Sunday.
corner, 10 days.
Yeah, next Sunday. That's the day after my birthday. So yeah, back it. Do what you can to support. I do whatever I can to support indie publishers, especially minority indie publishers, and one of the things that really, really had me hooked with FairSquare when it was comics back in the day, when I first interviewed Fabrice back at Fan Expo New Orleans. It was their very first year. And what really stuck with me and continues to today is that FairSquare focuses on bringing minority voices to the industry. And if you look at everything that they've put out, he's stuck to that. And Crystal is stuck to that. And everyone else there at FairSquare Graphics have done that. So they will always have a backer in me, and I urge you all to become one as well. And if you can't back on KickStarter, again, they are at comic conventions all over the country, and get out there and support them there as well. Again, when, as he mentioned earlier, when COVID struck and DC and Marvel was able to leave Diamond with a snap of the finger, and then Image was able to leave with a snap of the finger. It's not that simple to do for publishers the size of FairSquare Graphics. There's a lot of work that goes into it and a lot of money. So whatever support we can do as fans, publishers on the indie scene definitely will appreciate it. Fabrice,
and also Theo, if I may, maybe it's because I was raised in Europe and I have a certain idea what a quality book is, but I always I'm reminded of that a very famous quote from James Cameron, who always had tight budgets at the beginning of his career, and he was like, my movies look better because every dollar is on screen. We're doing exactly the same with comics and graphic novels. We're boxing above our weight. Every dollar is in the book. It's not with us. We don't have a car. We don't own a house. We don't have offices that are crazy. We don't own anything. Everything goes in the books.
Well, my money will be going into FairSquare, and it has, and it will continue to do so. Every time a new project comes out, you definitely have my support. Fabrice Sapolsky, thank you so much for joining me here on the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. So again, I want to thank Fabrice Sapolsky for joining me on today's podcast. It was a very mind-opening conversation. You think you know a lot about the industry, and you learn a whole lot more once you sit down and listen to this. It was a very thought-provoking conversation talking about what's going on in the industry and the Kickstarter campaign itself, We Will Survive, over from FairSquare Graphics. The links to the campaign will be in the show notes below. It is live until August 31st, 2025. So we still have about a week. If you have not committed yourself to the campaign, take a look at it. There are some great campaign tiers out there for you, depending upon the style of books and the type of books that you enjoy. Most of the tiers are for digital comics, but there are also some add-ons for physical books that you can purchase as well to support the folks over at FairSquare Graphics as they try to get themselves back on their feet after the debacle with the fall of Diamond Distributors. Again, I've been following FairSquare from almost the beginning. My very first campaign with them was Noir's The New Black, the trade paperback edition that they did several years ago during the pandemic in 2020, and I've been following them ever since. Again, I followed several campaigns and have followed them at conventions across the country and have bought books there as well. So they are a publishing company that you should definitely follow, especially if you're looking at or looking for an eclectic view of comics, different types of comics, whether superheroes, whether it's just whatever, they will likely have it. And again, they are a publishing company that focus on minority creators, whether the writer or the artist. And so that's something that means a lot to me. So again, thanks to Fabrice. I will definitely be looking to find Crystal at a comedy show in New York one day. But those guys, they do a hell of a job running that company, and it is a 2-3 man show with Fabrice and Crystal and one other, I believe the name is Ethan, who's the third partner over at FairSquare Graphics. But support those guys. Matter of fact, support any creators that are out there on Kickstarter or at conventions. They don't have all of the avenues that the Images and the DCs and the Marvels of the world have. And so they use platforms such as going to a convention or doing a campaign on Kickstarter to get their material out there. Sometimes, that's the only way that they can get it to the distributor, to get to local comic shops as well. But they definitely have my support over there at FairSquare Graphics. Again, the link is in the link to the campaign is in the show notes. And I would assume, and I assume pretty surely that they would appreciate any support that you can give them in this campaign. I'll also have a link to FairSquare's shop and their website, so that if there's some things that you do want to buy in physical form and not digital, you can support them through that route as well. And I'll have that in the show notes. But that is going to do it for this episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. Next time, I got some stuff that I've been meaning to get out, and just time and work has prohibited me from doing so. So the first thing that I want to get out is an interview I did with Christopher Priest back in July over at GalaxyCon New Orleans. He was here for that event, and I sat with him for about 30 minutes, and we just talked about a bunch of stuff that he's doing over at Marvel and at Dynamite with Vampirella, and his new series looking at Red Sonja. So I'm going to have that ready for next time, and I'll probably finally have my top 5 for that given week as well. But I want to thank you all for joining me for this week's episode. I will see you next time around. That is going to do it for this episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support of the program. The Comic Bin Podcast, as well as the Comic Book Spot, are a part of the Comic Book Source family of sites and media. You can follow the podcast on Twitter X at comic_bin, or my personal account at BatmanFan_4life. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. We're all over social media. You can also follow our sister site over at thebatmanuniverse.net for all of your news and reviews in the world of Batman. Tune in next time as we give you more in the world of comic books. Again, we truly appreciate your support. But until we meet again next time, keep reading those comics.